It's time for another round of fact-checking TikTok and Instagram hair tips. I'm Michelle, I'm a chemistry PhD, science communicator, and hair science nerd. Today we're covering hair growth supplements and shampoos, dangerous ingredients that might make your hair fall out, product recalls, and some stuff I think is just scientifically interesting, and I hope you'll think so too. Let's get started.
What chemicals in cosmetics cause hair loss? And I find this medical article on 5 ingredients that are added to cosmetics that are known to kill hair follicles and make you lose your hair. And all of them were in my kids' shampoo and conditioners that they thought were healthy versions of shampoos and conditioners, better than Pantene, Head & Shoulders, whatever.
Okay, so first off, this article, if you look it up, it is not a medical article. It's an article on the website of a brand that sells a hair laser device. A lot of brands do this. They write articles on things that aren't actually relevant to their product for SEO purposes, that is search engine optimization. Basically, it's so when people are Googling things like ingredients to avoid for hair loss, they end up on your website and you can sell them laser hair helmets. The problem is, a lot of the time, they aren't actually experts on this other related thing. These are just written on what they find on the internet, and for this one, it was written originally in 2024, which means they probably just used ChatGPT. If you don't already know, ChatGPT, the way it works is it basically mashes together the top whatever Google search results. It doesn't fact check, it's just all of the most common stuff on the internet mashed together. The author, it says it is the brand CEO and he supposedly is a medical scientist, but I feel like it's more likely he's outsourced it to an intern who has used ChatGPT. I'm not sure why there's a lady on the side. I think this is like a lazy reaction video. It does say comment better for non-tox options. I'm pretty sure that will send you a DM with a bunch of affiliate links, and if you buy the product she recommends, then she gets a cut of that. Anyway, these 5 ingredients are sulfates, parabens, phthalates, silicones, and formaldehyde-releasing preservatives. These are all standard ingredients that clean beauty brands tend to fearmonger about. I've talked about all of these before, a whole bunch, and why the risks of these are really not what they're made out to be. But this article, it just has the standard stuff. It doesn't actually say anything about killing hair follicles like the guy said. And they don't actually do that unless you do something very weird, like maybe if you put a sulfate-containing shampoo on your head and you just don't rinse it off for like 4 hours every day. That is going to be pretty irritating and could cause hair loss. But unless you're allergic, normal use is not going to be an issue. So this guy, he's not even basing what he's saying on this medical article. He's just saying medical article, so you think he must be reliable.
I'm just going to give you one tip. If you care about keeping your hair, most shampoos and conditioners have a chemical in them called dimethicone. Dimethicone actually kills hair follicles and makes you lose your hair. So if you don't want to become a slave to Rogaine, or you don't want to have plugs put in your head in the future because you're losing your hair, just know there's chemicals that the industry's aware they're adding to your cosmetics that are creating really horrific problems.
Dimethicone doesn't do this. It is a silicone that is a conditioning ingredient, and conditioning is good for your hair. It forms a coating on your hair shaft that means it doesn't get yanked around as much, there's less friction, and it doesn't get chipped away as you're brushing your hair like she is. That yanking and friction is actually really bad for your hair because you end up with internal and external damage, and that internal damage will build up to cause a break. This diagram is from my book, The Science of Beauty, and this part talks about the types of damage on hair. So a lot of the time we think about the external damage, the damage on the outside of the cuticle layer that is chipping away as you're grooming, as you're brushing your hair. But there's also internal cracking, like if you pull the hair, if you bend it, if you stretch it, all of that leads to internal cracks, and those build up to form a break. Dimethicone isn't just in hair products, it's also in tons of moisturizers. So if it did kill hair follicles, then laser, waxing, and like women's razors, all of them would just go bankrupt. And this whole conspiracy theory where the industry is purposely putting these really widely used ingredients in products to make you lose hair or purposely hurt you is just really silly if you think about it. It just wouldn't make sense. If there was good evidence that this was happening, the industry has thousands, maybe millions of scientists. Someone would have the conscience to come out and tell everyone. And there are tons of competing companies in the industry. One company would just be throwing their competitors under the bus and showing us all of this great evidence. It is just really not possible for this sort of thing to be kept under wraps. And this is especially the case with dimethicone. This is just such a widely used ingredient. It's not just in cosmetic products, it's also in medical products. It is just really well researched.
Pumpkin seed oil has been proven to increase hair growth by 40%. This is the evidence from the clinical trial, and honestly, it is an amazing ingredient if you have DHT-related hair loss, which is the main cause of hair loss in both men and women. And what you need to do is make sure that you're blocking it with ingredients that can block the transformation of testosterone to dehydrotestosterone, otherwise known as DHT. And one of the ingredients that can do this, that's a natural supplement, is pumpkin seed oil.
A whole bunch of you have asked me to talk about pumpkin seed oil because so many people online are saying it works really well for hair loss, including a whole bunch of dermatologists. This person is one of the few people showing the actual evidence, so we can actually look at it and think about whether or not it makes sense. Out of these three, two of them are animal studies on mice. Things that work on mice don't necessarily work on people because we have different physiology. But this clinical trial could be convincing because it is being tested on actual people. It is sponsored by the brand that makes the supplement, so it could be less biased, but at the same time with things like hair loss, it's not super serious, it's not that easy to get public funding. It is also from a questionable publisher, so maybe the peer review process wasn't very good. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, and I'm not seeing anything obviously sus in the data. But if you look at the methods, let's read the paper. It is using a specific supplement, it's called Octasabal Plus, and it doesn't actually contain pumpkin seed oil. It contains pumpkin seed powder, which comes from processing the pumpkin seed oil, but on top of that, it also has 6 other ingredients. So you can't actually generalize the results of this to pumpkin seed oil or even pumpkin seed powder. It could be just one or a combination of these ingredients that works. And this makes sense because most of the time, if a company is paying a whole bunch of money to do a clinical trial, they don't want to just promote a generic ingredient. They want you to buy their supplement and show that their supplement is better. They're not trying to, give free marketing to their competitors. I don't know if this ended up with pumpkin seed oil in the title because of some translation issue, because this is a Korean company. But other than this clinical trial, there aren't any solid studies on pumpkin seed oil, so it is very much not proven to increase hair growth by 40%, unfortunately. This is called the bowl method. It is a super popular way of styling wavy and curly hair. Now, I think I mentioned a couple times that my hair is slowly going wavy, but I am a bit in denial. I started trying some of these wavy hair tips and I'm not very good at the execution part of it yet, but I thought it would be really interesting to talk about the science behind the steps. I think it's interesting anyway. Let me know if you think so as well. Curly and wavy hair tends to look frizzy more easily than straight hair because it's a lot easier to line up straight hair than it is to line up all of these different shapes. Having them lined up means they give a nice continuous reflection that looks shiny. If they're all out of whack, then it's a lot harder to get a nice shine, and so it just looks frizzy. So the point of this sort of routine is to try to line up the waves or curls and then keep them like that for as long as possible. So first we have really wet hair, there's a lot of brushing and conditioning, and water is really important here. Water is super useful for reshaping hair. Water does a really cool thing with curly hair. It actually helps it self-assemble, which we'll talk about a bit more later. So first we have detangling and we have conditioner. Conditioner is really good for coating hair. It's not like a continuous coating, but this reduces friction and damage when you're brushing. Now, brushing wet hair, this is not necessarily damaging. It really depends on how much force you're using. And so with curly hair, it straightens a bit when it's wet because hydrogen bonds inside the hair break. We're going to be talking about bonds a whole bunch today, and bonds are really cool. I know I am biased because I am a chemist. But basically you can think of the bonds as like glue or wax holding the hair together, holding it in a particular shape. Water breaks a bunch of the bonds inside the hair and makes it go floppier. It's sort of like heating up wax, heating up a candle. It goes soft and you can reshape it more easily. So with curly and wavy hair, it can actually be less damaging to brush when wet because we have a straighter shape, and so the brush is hitting less curves. The next bit is where the bowl comes in. She's dunking her hair into the bowl, which has a bit of water in there. And this step I think is mostly just to spread the product out and spread the water out, making sure that all of the hair is sort of as evenly coated with the conditioner as possible. Then we have the scrunching. This is actually the self-assembly bit. So we have the hair as parallel as possible, and then this scrunching bit. Water is sticky, and I'm going to put a video up here of my hair sticking together with water. So you have all of these spirals that could line up and they've got sticky stuff on the outside and you're just smashing them together. They are going to basically just zip up and turn into parallel curves. And doing this upside down is firstly practical, you can reach all of your hair more easily, but also it's all hanging down freely, and so it can self-assemble into a shape that it wants and you don't have like the rest of your back getting in the way. Next, she puts on a couple of styling products. These will eventually dry on the hair and they stick bits of hair together. It's like forming little, they call them weld parts. This is like adding more wax and more bonds on the outside of the hair, so when you're moving around and your hair is like getting messed up, it's going to get less pulled out of place. Now plopping, this is basically just holding the curls in place as they start to dry, and it lets the styling product start sticking the bits together without that impact of gravity. So gravity is pulling the hair straight, this is pushing it up so that you get more of a curve. The last step is drying, so we're removing water from the hair and allowing it to form more bonds. So this is sort of like if you had hot wax and you're letting it cool down, it's going more solid. Using a diffuser, this means that you can support the curls as they're drying, and so they're drying in more of a like compressed spring shape rather than an elongated spring with gravity. You also get more control over how it dries because it's faster, you're not just moving around like if you're air drying. When you're moving around, the strands can get pulled out of place. Some of them might dry faster than others, like the stuff on the outside. They might move out of that beautifully aligned shape you had. So slow drying is more likely to lead to frizz, whereas quickly drying, you have a lot more control. You can set it in a particular shape. I'm not sure if you found this as interesting as I did. I just found it so cool to understand what's going on behind it, because then it's so much easier to troubleshoot anything that's going on, and a lot of the steps make more sense. You can work out how to improve them without having to do tons and tons of trial and error. I have another video that goes more into this whole stuff about water. Water is like one of my favorite chemicals because it is just so cool how it works. Like and subscribe for more water fangirling, I guess. I feel like we just don't shout water out enough, sort of like how the Crows did not shout out a certain character after he killed an upper moon on his own. I think that is just messed up. What the hell was that?
One of my favorite games to play in a pharmacy is to work out if the claims on a packaging correlate with the ingredients that's listed. This is the software hydrating hair growth shampoo. Better have either growth factors or DHT blockers, or I will be disappointed. It does have some soothing ingredients. Sorry, it doesn't have anything to actually grow your hair. It's a no from me. We've got Umberto Gianni's rosemary scalp oil. This is saying that you're going to get stronger, healthier, longer hair. Let's have a look. It does have rosemary oil, so that's a big tick for me. Rosemary oil actually is as efficacious as minoxidil, provided you use it twice a day.
Okay, with the first shampoo, growth factors and DHT blockers are not the only things that can help with hair growth. This does have an active called Folicusan DP. This has clinical studies from the manufacturer showing that it increases hair density over 6 months in women. And this is cool because hair loss products are usually tested in men. Now, the evidence for Folicusan is not as strong as for a drug, and it doesn't look like the final formula has actually been tested. It looks like they are just relying on the manufacturer data. The final formulation can change how well an active ingredient will work, so I personally really like to see clinical testing. And I would understand if she said this doesn't really work for these reasons, but then she recommends a rosemary oil product, which is just worst on like every front. I've talked about the rosemary oil versus minoxidil study before and how dodgy it is. If you look beyond the abstract, it becomes extremely clear there are a whole bunch of red flags that really signal this study might be just maybe completely made up. And the authors do have like a history of publishing paper mill papers. It's a lot dodgier than the manufacturer data and other studies on rosemary oil. They are also highly questionable. There is also a whole bunch of like duplicated images. And there is no clinical testing for the formula here.
This is the Grow Long Hair Shampoo, looking once again for DHT blockers or peptides, something to stimulate that growth phase. There is nothing of that. Disappointing.
This is weird because this shampoo does have pyroxyenolamine. Again, there are no clinicals on the final formula, but pyroxyenolamine does have evidence for it supporting hair growth. And she's actually talked about pyroxyenolamine both before and after she posted this video. Like this video from Growth Bomb is a week later. I'm guessing she is an ambassador for them. Anyway, pyroxyenolamine does seem to help with the microbiome on the hair. It helps with the microbial balance, and that helps to promote a healthy scalp, which grows better hair.
Georgie Main's hair growth spray. It promotes hair growth for thin or slow growing hair using powerful ingredients. It does have clover flower extract, known to block DHT, and acetyl tetrapeptide 3. Acetyl tetrapeptide 3 omega-3 has these important peptide molecules that cause anchoring of the hair follicle to be a lot better. The formulation and the ratios might be off, but at least they're starting out with the right ingredients.
I mostly agree with this part. I would say that red clover extract could actually be a bit of an issue here. It's not necessarily proven because it is a natural extract. Natural extracts have a whole bunch of variation. There are so many different ways to process, to extract things from a single plant like red clover. So it's really hard to tell if this specific extract has the right stuff within it to work. It's kind of like orange juice. Orange juice can taste different depending on where you get it from, and that's because it has different ingredients in it, and some of those ingredients might be active and some might not. Now, there is an ingredient called Capixyl, which has red clover extract and acetyl tetrapeptide 3, and there is some manufacturer data on it, which, again, not foolproof, not very strong, but at least there is data. And inside this product, it looks like it has the right ingredients to be Capixyl, but it doesn't actually say Capixyl. So it's possible that they just put in the ingredients with the right names to make it look like Capixyl or just to try to dupe it. But again, natural extracts are super variable, so who knows what this clover extract actually is. It might work, it might not, it is a bit of a crapshoot, and if you are looking for something that really works for hair loss, I would recommend going to a dermatologist. I do have a dermatologist guest who specializes in hair loss to come on a bit later to give us tips. Stay tuned for that.
Can someone answer me a question about apple cider vinegar? I know a lot of people use it to cleanse their hair. It's also in products like Aveeno, which is a clarifying shampoo. The pH of apple cider vinegar is between 2 and 3. Hair's natural state is 4.5 to 5.5, meaning that you have to use something higher than that to help open up that cuticle to, get inside the hair and cleanse it. So if you're using apple cider vinegar, are you doing anything? Genuinely, is anything happening? I need a lab. I need science department people, because I'm ultimately very confused. Because why is it being sold as a clarifier if its pH is 2 to 3, which theoretically anything acidic would help seal a cuticle, not open it? Help!
A bunch of people sent this to me like months ago and I forgot it existed. So I'm really sorry. I'm not sure if he's gotten an answer yet, but it is a really interesting question and here is the explanation. First off, the cuticle, the outside of the hair, that doesn't really open and close that much with a normal pH range. Normal pH meaning from about pH 2 to roughly pH 9. Water itself does loosen the cuticle a bit, but you don't really loosen the cuticle much, like only water really gets in and out until you get to more extreme pHs. And this doesn't really happen with shampoo or cleaning the hair. It's really chemical treatments that do this to access the inside of the hair. So bleach, for example, that needs to get into the cortex to break up the melanin, which is the pigment color. That is what happened to my hair last week, so it is very rough and damaged. Clarifying treatments and cleaning treatments, they don't actually go inside the hair. It's really to remove buildup from the outside of the hair, outside of the cuticle. The cuticle does not need to open for cleaning to work because nothing really gets inside the cuticle that you need to clean out. Now, in terms of apple cider vinegar and acids actually cleaning stuff, some things do dissolve a bit better at low pH, so they are easier to remove. But most of the stuff that builds up on hair these days at least can be removed with surfactants. Surfactants are the standard cleaning ingredients in shampoos and lots of other cleaning products like face wash, body wash, even dishwashing powder. But these can be combined in lots of different ways at lots of different concentrations, and that gives you different levels of cleaning. I don't know if anyone else watching is of a vintage enough to remember this email that used to go around about SLS. It said something like, SLS is used to clean garage floors, therefore it should not be in your shampoo, and that is just not true. You can adjust the levels, you can adjust the other stuff in the shampoo to make sure it's a lot gentler. And surfactants are part of why vinegar has this reputation for being clarifying, because older shampoos, they use natural or true soaps, which is a specific type of surfactant. And the reason newer surfactants were invented is because soaps don't work that well in some conditions. They can form scum with hard water. And so deposits of this scum on hair would make it feel rough and look dull. These were really tiny deposits, so you couldn't actually see soap scum on your hair. It was just this overall dull effect. Acid is good at dissolving soap scum, so rinsing with vinegar would actually clarify your hair and make it look shinier. But these days, you don't find true soaps in the vast majority of shampoos. So vinegar is mostly just riding on that old reputation. Clarifying shampoos don't usually have very acidic pHs. It is in standard shampoo range. It is mostly the other ingredients, specifically surfactants, doing the work of clarifying.
Here are some shampoos that have been recalled in the last year. And if you don't know who I am, I have been in the scalp and hair industry for almost 8 years.
Okay, so I looked her up and she is an executive director at Monat. That is a multi-level marketing company. I don't know much about this stuff. Lots of other people who know a lot more have talked about this. There are lots of YouTube videos, but I have come across a lot of Monat salespeople saying very suspicious things. I get tagged and sent their videos all the time, but I think this might be interesting because we haven't really talked that much about recalls. It'll be interesting to see why products have been recalled, so let's have a watch.
First off, there has been a bacterial contamination recall. Normally, I don't have too much bad stuff to say about this product, or this brand, I should say. This is the Amika Mirrorball High Shine and Protect shampoo. I'm just going to end up butchering the name of the bacteria that it's contaminated with, even though I do have a chemistry degree and I am familiar with Latin names. It's like a very long, confusing one.
This is very relatable for me. I can do really long chemical names, but Latin doesn't make sense to me. I cannot do like biological names.
So this is kind of when like preservatives fail or they're not adequate enough. Remember, preservatives preserve the shelf life of products. This bacteria survives in more moist environments. It can grow in water-based cosmetics, which water-based equals shampoo, and especially a lot of like, this is why I'm so passionate about shampoo on here, and you guys are always in my comments trolling me, but like so many shampoos are mostly water. You're paying for water. That's another topic though.
This whole you are just paying for water thing, I really don't like because having water in there is not that big of an issue. You actually want the ingredients to be at a concentration that works. It's already diluted with water, and so yeah, you end up with the correct concentration to put into your hair and have it work properly. If you have a shampoo bar, yes, it is more concentrated, it is more travel friendly, but you do have to work it more to get it at the right concentration. There's actually some interesting studies where they found that shampoo bars are not necessarily better for the environment because that extra time you spend in the shower trying to dilute it, all that water coming out can actually offset the savings from not having to transport water around. Water is very heavy, and so if you have a product with water, with all the shipping and stuff, there is a bit more of a carbon cost there. My friend Jen has done some posts on waterless cosmetics, but yeah, they're not necessarily more environmentally friendly, and they aren't necessarily more budget friendly either. It really varies from product to product, but I suspect this is part of the Monat pitch.
They thrive in a water environment. Shampoo is a lot of water, and a lot of shampoos is mostly water versus formula. So yeah, pretty much it wasn't like preserved enough. It's like poorly preserved. So some healthy people, it could not pose any risks. It can cause eye irritation and infections in immunocompromised people.
I don't really like this water versus formula thing. Water is part of the formula, but yes, bacterial contamination is a legitimate issue. It is one of the biggest reasons for recalls. And I do like that she highlights this is why preservatives are in products. You need them for this reason. It makes them safer. When I talk about how parabens and preservatives are not toxic, they are not unsafe, they are fine at the concentrations in products, I get a lot of comments sometimes saying, but what if I just don't want something that's slightly toxic? What if I just want zero toxic stuff in there? Microbial contamination is why bacteria and other microbes do actually produce things that are irritating. They produce actual toxins by the scientific definition. These are not good for you. They can cause irritation, infections, and yeah, especially in immunocompromised people, they can be pretty dangerous. If you have less parabens and less preservatives, then you have more of these other microbial uncontrolled toxins. It is just so much better to have this extremely low known dose of parabens or other preservatives that we know is very safe. Parabens are also really robust. You don't really need very much to have an effective preservative that keeps the product free from microbes. With some of the newer preservatives, you do have to use a lot more, and they are generally less robust. I've been told by people who are a bit older, more experienced in the industry, they've said that the number of recalls have gone up since clean beauty became a thing and everyone got scared of parabens. I don't know if there's been a proper study on this. I hope someone will do one. Anyway, parabens, again, unsung hero, and I'm not going to go into another rant about injustices in movies.
This is a popular one, I feel, so if you're experiencing any sort of just like offness about your health, stop using it, now you know. So this is the Pantene Aerosol Dry Shampoo and Conditioner. It had some low levels of benzene, which is a carcinogen, found in some aerosol lots. So having benzene in a product is a serious health concern.
I've talked a lot about benzene before. The benzene recalls were all because of a lab called Valisure and their framing of the issue and their measurements. They are all pretty questionable. In my opinion, I have a video that does a deep dive into that. Even if Valisure's measurements were accurate and not overblown, which #doubt, The levels of benzene just aren't going to cause any sort of offness about your health. This recall was not because people actually had issues. You would probably get more exposure to benzene just filling your car up with petrol or living in a house where your car is parked in an attached garage.
And benzene is not actually intentionally added. It's usually a contaminant and it enters through manufacturing. It's like often through propellants that are used in spray products. So aerosol propellants are like butane and isobutane, propane. These can be contaminated with trace amounts of benzene, especially if they're not properly purified, which if you're paying $5 for a dry shampoo or even 10, do you think it's properly purified? Absolutely not. And that's why I have this platform to educate, even though other hair influencers, again, are promoting the $5, $10 products. They're not good for you. Let me say it again for like the 500,000th time.
I feel like this is where the Monat sales pitch is coming in. Monat is not cheap, and this simply is not true. Prices depend on so much more than just the ingredients going into the products. And even if we are just talking about ingredients cost different amounts for different brands. For example, with mass market brands, these are the ones that you see everywhere. They're often owned by multinationals. They are selling really, really large volumes. They're using propellants in tons and tons of products. They get economy of scale, and they also have better bargaining power to get cheaper prices. And if you look at the ValueSure results, the price points are all over the place. There is just no good relationship between price and whether or not it had benzene or even benzene concentrations. Like Colab, this is a very budget-friendly dry shampoo. I think it is like $10 in Australia, which is what, like $6 in US money? They had no benzene detected in any of their products. Clearly, being cheap doesn't mean you get benzene. I came across this post on TikTok, Dermatologist Secrets Everyone Needs to Know, and it felt kind of sus to me. I think the first three you can make an argument for, but that bottom one, low vitamin D and iron is the reason 80% of you are losing hair, that just doesn't quite sound right, even if, to be a bit more fair to her, since her audience is probably mostly women, we take out male pattern hair loss, which is caused by hormones. So I thought I'd ask a dermatologist who specializes in female hair loss to give us more info. This is Dr. Leona Yip. On top of being a dermatologist, she also has a PhD in female hair loss. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I wanted to ask, what are the most common causes of hair loss in women?
The commonest conditions I see that would present with hair shedding would be female pattern hair loss, hair thinning. Your hair cycles get shorter, so your hairs churn around faster, it sheds more. And telogen effluvium shedding, which is stress related. And this could be psychological stress, or it could be physical stresses like after surgery or changes in hormonal contraception, or if you're unwell. In many women, it's a combination. So they start off with shedding from stress that can unmask or trigger the onset of thinning. And you get other factors in the mix, like with menopause, or with aging, or with scalp inflammation issues, such as with dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis or psoriasis. And there's seasonal shedding to throw into the mix that can happen in mid to late summer, early spring, that can also contribute to shedding.
And what proportion of female hair loss would you say is caused by vitamin D and iron deficiency? I'm guessing correlation and causation here need to be a bit untangled, because I would guess a lot of people with hair loss would just happen to have these deficiencies because these deficiencies are really common.
It's good that you asked this question. There are not very many studies that have looked at the proportion of people with hair loss that have iron deficiency and vitamin D deficiency, but on average, about 30 to 40%. So it's not that many, although these deficiencies are common. And the other issue we have is a lot of women who present with hair shedding, they may have underlying iron deficiency, which is the commonest form of nutritional deficiency in the world in women. But when you restore or replace their iron levels, the hair shedding doesn't stop. So that has always been a contentious issue. And there are no studies that have looked at the benefits of supplementation for iron and vitamin D in terms of reversal of hair shedding and hair growth. And also, what cutoff threshold are we using to define iron deficiency in terms of hair loss? And there is expert disagreement about what this level should be. But if I do have patients who have iron deficiency or vitamin D deficiency, I would suggest that they replace it anyway, because they need that for their general health benefits. And I would also tell them, managing their expectations, that I wouldn't expect replacing these alone to really help reduce their shedding or their regrowth. Also, with telogen effluvium, which is stress-induced, it often settles on its own after a few months when the trigger is removed. So there's this constant Oh, I use this hair loss shampoo and I've used this hair loss supplement and it's fixed my hair. I've got so much regrowth. But in fact, your hairs were going to recover anyway, spontaneously, a few months after that trigger's gone. A lot of the ingredients for hair growth are manufacturer based, and the studies are done by the manufacturers and the different brands. Unless they're transparent about their research, it's really hard to know the quality of the studies, and many of them are also short term and very small sample sizes. It could be 30 or 40 participants, and they've looked at it over 6 months. There's a lot of shampoos out there, like caffeine shampoos, and there's anti-dandruff shampoos like ketoconazole that people recommend, but in fact, these studies are decades old and they're very small studies. I do consult with L'Oreal, that's my conflict of interest, but I work only with brands that have good science. And L'Oreal has got hair ranges with active ingredients such as Emanex and stamoxidine with quite good science behind it. But again, despite that, I would consider hair growth shampoos like skincare for hair and scalp. If I treat acne, I still need to recommend good skincare, but I wouldn't rely on skincare alone to fix acne. It's the same concept with hair loss. Medical therapies in 2025 will still remain our first line.
I also asked Leona to share her top hair loss tips with us. Follow her on Instagram for more great info.
If you're suffering from hair loss, I have 3 top tips for you. Number 1, prioritize your scalp health. If your scalp is not healthy, your hairs do not grow properly, you will shed more hair. So it's no point treating hair loss until your scalp is healthy. Treat any inflammation, psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis, eczema. If there's dandruff, treat it. Protect your scalp from UV exposure, pollution. Wash it regularly and frequently to optimize scalp environment for hairs to grow healthier. My second tip is trust the process. Hair loss treatments take time to work. It takes at least 3 to 6 months for things to start working and to see visible results. Remember, your hairs grow 1 centimeter a month, so it is a slow process. And for treatments to keep giving you the results you want to see, you need to be on this into the longer term or indefinitely. There are no shortcuts. The hair loss journey is different from person to person. We take into consideration your age, perimenopause, environment, lifestyle factors, your other medical problems and medicines for us to decide what combination treatment is best for you and if hair regeneration procedures such as exosome injections are in fact even suitable for you. And the third is trust science, not rosemary oil. Social media trends like rosemary oil, caffeine shampoos, these are trends, and trends are fashionable, but trends pass. Science-backed treatments are like style. It builds the foundation of hair loss medicine. It's here to stay. It has the best evidence of working for you. The most important determinants of whether hair loss treatments would work for you and to get the best results are having the right diagnosis, the right combination treatments, and the right treatment provider. So choose wisely.
Please send me any interesting TikTok or Instagram videos that you want me to talk about. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a whole bunch of other hair videos here. See you next time for more nerdy beauty science.